well, I'm not where I want to be. And so maybe I just don't want it bad enough. Likely it's not something you are doing or not doing. It is something that you are afraid to face and be able to overcome. That's what that very tightly gripped white knuckling it feeling is in business. The mind thinks, the heart always knows. 80% of our nerves signals go heart to brain. If you're not ready to hear it, that's okay, because I wasn't ready to hear this before. Embodied CEOs don't chase trends. They pave the way. They lead from within, moved by purpose, unshaken by noise. When you are the source, you do not need permission. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you guys are having an incredible week. We are down to the last, 2 months, just over 2 months left of the year. Now is the time to start to get clear on how you want to end the year, how you want to start the next year, and being really intentional with that. I am seriously in one of the most profound periods of my life. And while I can't share some of the details of that, there's a lot of lessons that I get to bring to the podcast as it relates to it without sharing the details that I'm not ready to share yet. Because I'm in it, right? And sometimes we have to process things before we can share them. However, there's so much real, authentic learning that is happening for me right now as a leader and just in my life. It is truly the most powerful time. And last week's podcast episodes both kind of touched on lessons and things related to that. And the response from them has been incredible. So I'm really grateful for that. And today I had a follow-up point that I wanted to make based on questions and comments that I got on the last episode to this one. And then something I want to share deeper that has been transforming and evolving for me that I think will help you guys, because I think we're all so alike. And I am somebody who spends a lot of time in my mind and in a state of kind of analyzing and wanting to control and overpower myself oftentimes. And it's created success for me, but I've hit this point where I feel like I'm finally expanding beyond that in a way that things that didn't make sense before now are just clicking into place. And I'm in a place of clarity like never before, where everything is just so clear. Even the hard things and the hard decisions are so clear, and I feel so much peace and so free. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on is kind of a continuation of last Thursday's episode. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that. But someone, actually a mastermind member of mine, asked a question that I think is really important, because I think that this audience can fall into the category of very quickly judging and blaming themselves for things. So last week I did a podcast all about how bad do you really want it? And challenging you guys of okay, how bad do you really want it? And what's the evidence in your life to prove that? Are you taking the actions? Are you creating the situations and the, environment and accountability to really have what you want? And a couple of you came back with, well, I'm not where I want to be. And so maybe I just don't want it bad enough. Maybe I need to push harder. Maybe I need to force, this harder. And I really understand where that's coming from, because that used to be me. Is this is where I want to be. I'm not there. And so I just need to push myself harder. I just need to force myself to do this. I just need to overcome these emotions or overcome these blocks. And if I push hard enough, then surely I'll have it. And while I think that is true for some people, I think some people need, and it's different in different seasons of life. I think some people need that push of do it anyways, do it uncomfortable. Put yourself in the situation where you are scared, where you are uncomfortable, but it's still in alignment with you. And I think sometimes we do need that. Other times, I think that the block of being where you want to be is very subconscious and actually comes from avoiding things we don't want to feel, because we have deemed them as not productive or helpful. And so this individual, my intuition when she asked this was, I don't think you're not where you want to be for lack of actual physical effort. Sure, there are plenty of entrepreneurs that is the reality, is they want to be somewhere and they want it to come to them very easily. I think there's also a lot of you, and again, I fall into this bucket all the time as I speak these things, who we're not where we want to be because we can't see that we are subconsciously creating a reality blocking us from that, because there are things that we don't want to face. And so the solution to that is a really hard one, and it's one that we all avoid, which is sitting with those parts of us and those emotions that we build our entire reality to avoid. Let's just create an example. If you are not where you want to be in your business, like you're not making the money you want to make yet, you don't have the growth, you don't have the platform, you don't have the impact yet, and you feel like you're not really making progress. I think it's a process, right? So if you feel like you're working towards that every month and it's working, that's one thing. But if you kind of find yourself in this cycle where it's like, I, do this and then I end up right back here. And then I do this and it's like 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. And the effort is there, the actual physical effort in trying. Because for this individual, I watch her and it's like the effort is there. You're putting in the effort. You're taking the actions, you're making the investments, and you're not afraid of growth. It's a perspective shift that needs to happen. Now, in order for that to happen, you need to sit with those parts of you that your entire system is like, we can't, like that's death to us. Now, how you do that is through a very uncomfortable experience of fully accepting what is. And I have been going through this where, man, it's like none of this is black and white, and I think that's why it's sometimes hard to actually get people to see these things, because it's so embodied. It's like I can't logically explain a lot of these things. I try, but I spent a lot of my life only focused on the emotions I wanted to feel. Happiness, success, accomplishment, being seen, and completely blocking out and hiding from anything that I didn't want to feel, like shame, rejection, fear, sadness even. Sadness is a very overwhelming emotion for me. And I hit a point, this is recent, and I did share this on the podcast, where I realized like the only way for me to expand and evolve past this is to sit in those, to sit in it and let it have the space that it has wanted for so long. And sitting in that is awful. It's scary. And sometimes it's micro moments. Sometimes it's actually like sitting in it for 10 minutes is just like allowing it to come in. So if you are somebody who is not where you want to be, and you're like, I am pushing so hard, I am trying so hard, I'm making every decision possible, and then your reaction to that episode that I had is like, how can I blame myself for this? Likely it's not something you are doing or not doing. It is something that you are afraid to face and be able to overcome. So this individual, I said, like, we talked through a few things, and I said, I want you to sit in stillness and feel that part of you. I want you to feel and ask that part of you, like, if you had a voice, what would it say? So for me, like, my big block is fear. Fear drives a lot. And fear, I think a lot of us experience this, where like we can be very fear-led, scarcity-led, where like I started my business with didn't have any money, had a newborn baby, was in total survival mode. And so everything I did was motivated by fear. It was motivated by, if I don't do this, I won't be able to live. I won't be able to put food on the table. And I don't know if I even had those like direct thoughts, but my system did. So everything was driven by that fear. And for me too, it was also proving. I needed to prove to people that I could be a successful young mom and not just like make it, but thrive. And that became this like motivating thing for me. And it created a lot of success until you fulfill that and you're like, now what's driving me? Fear also shows up a lot for me in different decisions in my life. Even small ones in the business of like allowing fear to drive a decision to not invest in something or to not bring on extra support or even to like push our company resources to the brim because I always want to make sure we are maximizing it to the fullest potential. Fear it's constantly there. Now here's like the subtle difference with this is you can either run from the fear and tell yourself logically, that's not true. Here's the reasons why. List them out, give yourself the evidence, and kind of continually go on that loop with yourself logically. And I did that for a very long time. Or you can pause and say, let me actually fully feel this fear. Like, let me allow myself this space. And it doesn't have to be a long time. You don't have to sit in it for a day or a week. I mean, literally, it can be 20 minutes. But it's like a river. It's like you've got to let these things move because otherwise you're running from them and you're controlling them. And that's what that like very tightly gripped white knuckling it feeling is in business, where it's like, if I let go of this grip, everything's going to fall apart. And I think we experience this in life too. So in that case, it's actually a matter of going, instead of running from this, instead of trying to logically tell myself why I shouldn't be afraid, and all the evidence and like overpower. The mind cannot overpower the body. The body always knows the body is always right. Now, there's also the balance of you are not the body, but you've got to acknowledge it and give it the space. So when you do that, it really dissipates it. It's like, oh, it's not that scary. Or let me acknowledge that fear and then let me make a conscious choice to choose not to operate from fear. Because the fear, it is a story that we have made up. And so in this person's case, I said, I need you to go into that pain. She has pain around being seen. And if I'm seen and then someone rejects me, it means this. And so that's causing her to make decisions about not putting herself out there, not taking these actions. And so instead of trying to logically overcome that and tell yourself why you shouldn't be doing that, first thing is you have to fully see it and like shine the light on it and give it the space and ask it what it's got to tell you. Now that doesn't mean it's all truth. But it is real. So I want to explain that difference, because if you listen to that podcast and you're like, well, I just need to push myself harder. I just need to try harder. I just need to make better decisions. Sometimes the accountability of how bad do you really want it is asking yourself, what are the things I'm afraid to face? What are the things I'm running from within myself? What are the things that I am trying to control? And what would happen if I just surrendered all of that? And see what comes of that. Because I think sometimes when you ask yourself how bad, for me, what I would say is if I asked myself 3 months ago, how bad do you really want it? My honest answer would have been, you want it really bad in this whole bucket and area of your life that you continually show up and go, you get after it. And I do. And then there's this other like very subtle piece inside of you that you're in a loop and convincing yourself it's okay because you're afraid to face fear, pain, rejection, shame. And that's where I got, what would happen if you walked through that fire? What would happen if you just said, okay, like I am ready to walk through all of this? And it really, it's not easy. Like, again, to the system, it often feels like death to actually go through those experiences. But for those of you guys who create your business success and you get your drive from fear, which I think a lot of people do, because fear is a very motivating emotion. there is another side to it. And you can create success from that place of wholeness, that place of love, that place of purpose and surrender. And I'm there. And it's taken me, like, I think my whole life to get here, you know? So if we say, like, okay, around 6, 7, oh my gosh, 6, 7. I can't say that without thinking what the kids say these days. Around 6 or 7 years old, you start to develop these things. And so from there to now, that's how long it's taking me to like learn this. So I want to follow up with that. And then the next thing I want to talk about, and to be honest with you, man, sometimes I do these podcasts and I truly am, there's this critic in my head. And I share this because I want you guys to know this as a content creator. I create amazing content. I know my content is really good. And lately my content has been so heart-led, like just so dialed in because I'm so clear and I have no noise. But sometimes I do go to create this and there's this like critic in my head that's already criticizing my content before I create it. And yeah, I will sometimes create this and have fear that you guys are gonna, it doesn't make sense. But also, anytime I feel that, it's like my best content. And so I will feel that. I'll put an episode out and then I'll get all these messages. And it's like, that's the one that I thought wasn't going to make any sense to everyone. So here we go. Because this experience right here has been the most profound experience of my life. And I've boiled it down to this. So I, like most of you, am very head driven, right? I am logical. I'm a strategist. I am very like black and white. I am intelligent. My brain is intelligent. I can separate emotion. I can strategize and create and do a lot from that place. And I can easily turn off emotions. I can override emotions. Like, you don't feel like doing that, you're going to do it anyways. It's a superpower of mine. And when the pendulum swings so far, it creates disconnection. And I have spent several years, doing a lot of somatic work, of a couple of plant medicine ceremonies, of my meditation practice. And I think all of that has led me to where I'm at now, which is finally understanding the difference between the voice of the mind and the voice of the heart. And I'm just fascinated by this, because this is what happened to me. Is I hit this point, and I talked about on the podcast, so I don't need to repeat it all, but I hit this point where I was like, this is the truth inside of me coming from my heart. And it just keeps getting louder and louder. And no matter how much my brain tries to convince me that it's not the truth, and convince me why it's wrong, or convince me why here's the real truth, or this is what you should be thinking and feeling, it just kept getting louder. And when I finally had hard conversations, and even like had hard conversations with myself of like, honestly, this is where you're at. When I finally did that, this state of my being, like this feeling of freedom, peace, joy, was equivalent to actually, doing a psilocybin journey or something. Like, it was just so loud of this response. And what I'm realizing is this, and this is through a lot of things, but the mind thinks, the heart always knows. The mind is the strategist. It's the protector. It has a purpose. Our brain really does. It's the most incredible thing to study, is our brain, and how powerful it is, and how necessary it is. Like, it's not bad. It's just wired for survival, and it's wired for protection. The heart and the body is never wrong, ever. It always knows. And there's two voices inside of you. The heart is the voice of truth, and the mind is often the voice of reason and logic, and fear, because that's its job. Sometimes they're in sync, sometimes they're not, but the heart and the body always knows. And You could have told me this, a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. In fact, I've had many mentors tell me this. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to fully embody it. But now I have found the voice of my heart. And it sounds so woo. Like I don't even, this is one of these things that I'm like, if I heard someone say this a year ago, I probably would have been like, I don't understand what you're saying. But it's getting so loud and it's getting so clear and it's guiding everything in my life. I'll give you, some things that you can do to tune into this. I mean, it's your inner knowing, it's your higher self, whatever you want to call it. That's your heart. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast either, but I learned that 80% of our nerves signals go heart to brain. Only 20% go brain to heart. But we spend almost all our time in the brain, in the voice of the brain. And again, it has a purpose. Our brain is not bad. It has a purpose. We have to know that purpose. The heart, it's feelings. Okay? And it's, however, feelings are a state of being. Feelings are energy in motion. So they change. And I'm witnessing how emotions can change from 1 minute to the next. And it's insane. It's like, wow, I just swung from like feelings of this to feelings of this in a minute. But the heart always knows. And so if you can teach yourself to listen to that voice and differentiate it, you will never need an answer from somebody else ever again, from the smallest thing to the biggest things. And you've probably, like, everyone has experienced this before, where there is something that you're faced with, or you just get this like inner knowing and you're like, that's what I need to do. It comes up when it's time to make a big life decision. And all of a sudden people have like, I need to move to this place, or I need to leave this relationship, or I need to pursue this relationship, or I need to start the business, or I want to have the kids. Like, those big decisions usually come from the heart, and this, like, we can't ignore it anymore. But you can also use this for small day-to-day decisions. Like, I mean, I do it all the time in the business now. Like, now that I'm like learning the voice, I'm playing with it like it's an experiment. And it's never wrong. But it's very subtle. And I witnessed this experience in myself where, like, I will feel a truth, and then immediately my brain comes in with reasoning, analyzing, and then it can get confusing and it can get cloudy. And it's like, where is that coming from? But the heart is emotion. The heart speaks in emotion, and it speaks in feeling. So if you're sitting with a decision, something you can do is you can close your eyes. You've got to get in your body, because the heart is your body. It's in your body is your subconscious. So you close your eyes and you imagine yourself making both decisions. So you're playing out a scenario, you're playing out making a decision, and you fully imagine it, you fully envision it. Which one do you feel ease, relief, peace around? And here's the thing, it's not always going to be the decision that you want to make logically. In fact, a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's the decision you don't want to make, because it's the scarier decision. It's the more uncomfortable decision. It requires having hard conversations or making a decision that could potentially hurt somebody else. So, in all of my relationships in my life, from my family to my husband to friends to even small, like, people at CrossFit, I have had this new experience of when there is something that I need to voice. Sometimes I don't need to voice it, but when there's something I need to voice and it's a truth for me, I now listen to that. What I used to do is hear that voice and immediately tell myself why it needs to quiet down, why it's not right, why that person probably didn't mean it, whatever. And there's like this separation of you can speak your truth from a place of love and separate yourself from the other person's response. And I don't mean like say, mean things. I think that I'm convinced that we can speak what is honestly on our heart anytime, in any way, from a place of love without, it may hurt someone. It may hurt someone's feelings, but that's not, if you say it from that place, it's actually not about you. And so I've had some really hard conversations that I needed to have in my life in many different areas. And every time that I have it from that place, I feel so free. It's like I'm alive because my body and heart is like, you're finally listening to us. You're finally not shoving us down with your brain. And it's been conversations that are really challenging. And even conversations I have to have with myself. So in business and in life, when you have those decisions or those thoughts and we get into that analyzing, the first thing I'll say is this. An exercise you can do is create some sort of stillness for yourself. Meditation, go for a walk, unplug, get into your body. You have to be able to feel your body, feel the places in your body that you can feel emotion. And then ask yourself the prompt of, what does my heart have to say? If you don't resonate with heart, you can say, what does my body have to say? What does my higher self, my subconscious? They're all the same because that's the voice of truth. What does it have to say? And then just write and don't judge. Like, don't judge what's coming up. Don't judge what's coming up. Don't analyze it. Don't create meaning. Don't create reason. That's all your brain. Do that. See what comes up. That's your truth. And you might be surprised. Like when I did it, it was like, oh my gosh, so much. It was pages of my journal that came up that I was like, oh, and I felt so good. It's like you haven't even acknowledged these things within yourself in years. And then that gives me clarity on conversations I need to have, decisions I need to make. But I am telling you guys, this is a massive superpower, because then when the small little business things come up where it's like, hey, we need to make this decision. Do we launch this thing? Do we do this thing? Do we hire this person? Do we not hire this person? When those things now come up, there's a connection for me. Sure, I'm still using my brain. Like I'm still using strategy. I'm still using logic, but I run it through that connection. And it's because that's never wrong, ever. Even if it's the hard thing, even if it actually leads to something that, let's say we lose money or we say no to a sale. The key is you still have to listen and trust that that's the right choice. But in every relationship and in every part of my life right now, this has been the most powerful thing. And I think that I've spent years trying to get here because I just didn't get it. I'm like, what would happen to me was I would have this, this is the truth, or this is what my heart says. And then I didn't like what it was saying. Because I'd be like, well, that means this uncertainty, or that means this thing in my future, or I don't want that to be what I feel. Like I want to feel this instead. And so I'd override it and I would ignore it and I would logic and reason my way out of it. And what happened is I think that eventually I just got to a point where my body's like, nope, it's too big. Like we've expanded beyond this. And so we are going to shift this. So I don't know if this makes sense to you guys. And you know what? I actually think some of you probably do this already. I think this is a block I had, but I also know out of a lot of the people that I coach, this is also the block that they have. And somebody asked me, as I was talking about this recently, somebody said, how do I know the difference? How do I know the difference between my heart and my mind? And it's a good question because I have the same question. My answer to it is understanding the mind is the voice of reason, of logic, of analyzing, and oftentimes of making you wrong or right, of that black and white feeling. It usually comes from a place of fear, of thinking of the future, and that back and forth. The heart is an emotion. And when you make a decision from the heart, you will always feel peace and you will always feel ease and joy. And that doesn't mean it's the easy decision. More often than not, you weigh the scenarios or you weigh the truth, and then you go, this is what my body's saying. And you feel ease and relief by acknowledging it. But the mind will jump in and say, but that means you have to have a really hard conversation, or you have to make a really hard decision, or you have to walk through a situation where you're going to feel fear and those things you don't want to feel. It's still the truth. And then it's up to you to follow it or not. The more connected you are to this, like I'm telling you, you won't need another person. I'm not saying that mentors aren't good. Like we need perspective, but you have the answers. And I've always said this, like the truth is within you. It always has been. It always will be. We just forget. And this is always the truth. So my challenge to you guys today, my prompt to you is to sit down and say, what does my heart have to say? And if you're like, Emily, this is way too woo for me, that's fine. You're not ready to hear it. And I get it because I was not either a few years ago. But this connection is a superpower. And what it's doing in my life is allowing me to have the deepest connections I've had in relationships because I'm being so radically honest. And when you're radically honest, even if it's not what somebody wants to hear, they feel such a connection because it's like, this is the truth. You're not sugarcoating, you're not pretending, you're not protecting, like you're just being all of you, which is all you can do. It's creating that depth. It's creating massive clarity for me, like massive clarity. And then also when something happens in my life, I'm able to now decipher, and I'm getting better at it. Like I'm getting better at it every day, but I'm able to decipher and go, oh, like there's the brain. Like here's the fear. Here's the what ifs. Here's this. And that's not true. Thank you, brain, for that. It's not true. Back to what is the truth. And the more I can decipher that, I'm going to get faster at it. I'm going to get better at it because I'm sure there's places that I'm still not seeing it. And that's going to allow me to make decisions for my higher self, for the future, for where I'm going, getting out of my own way and taking myself there. So it has been, this has been the most life-changing 2 weeks. And I said it last week, but it's like nothing happened. I mean, it's a regular week. It's the day-to-day. And it's been life-changing because of a perspective shift, a small twist on the dials. And once you know these things, you cannot unknow them. So I record this because there's somebody out there who's going to hear this and it's going to change their perspective and it's going to change their life. And if you're not ready to hear it, that's okay. Because I wasn't ready to hear this before. And it didn't make sense. It could logically make sense, but I couldn't embody it. And now I can embody it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next time.